Today we are going to be painting this apple, but before we get started truly painting the apple, I want to talk about how important the process of tracing is. I'm tracing the picture, I'm using carbon paper, and I have a black and white photo. I have taped the black and white photo to my paper, and it is my carbon side, which is typically the shinier side, is down on the paper. Now, you probably know all of that already, but one of the things that I think is really important is knowing really what you want to include in the tracing and what maybe to leave out of the tracing. So I'm going to make sure that this is really down the taped down very well on my paper. Take a look and make sure that we trace all of the strong lines, anything that really gives our picture the shape and the form that we want it to have. So I will, of course, fast forward through a little bit of this tracing because you might not need to see all of it. But what I think is truly important is that we want to capture shadows and highlights in our tracing, at least very lightly. You know, the harder you press onto this paper, the stronger the carbon line is going to be. What we're going to do is we're going to begin with a light wash of red. We are moving from light to dark. So here at the top of our apple, that is almost white. I'm going to avoid those areas. There is some yellow in here as well, but I'm going to do a light red wash all over. And I think that, you know, this is rather white in here as well. So I'm going to begin, I believe, by we're gonna do this loose, and we're gonna do a wet on wet technique. We're going to drop in colors. So we're gonna let this be a loose instead of a very precise, detailed piece. We're gonna let it be loose. So I'm starting with my very big brush here, and what I want to do is I want to get a good amount of water onto my painting. Again, we are going to be using the wet on wet technique. I'm going to bring this in here. And bringing it down. Just bringing water all over the paper where I know that I will want there to be water. Where I want there to be color, truly, is what I meant to say there. And you can see it's highlighting where the water is on the paper. And now I'm taking this big brush, and I am using my Winsor & Newton set, and I'm using the crimson color here. And I'm going to do just a light wash of this crimson where I have water. So this is where I'm starting, and of course I'm splattering a little bit, but we're doing a light wash all over here, really dropping in the color. You know, we can build up that color for sure, but we want to start with light. We can always go darker, but I do want to bring in this color, and I'm moving around the pigment within this little apple here. And voila. So we have our start to our apple. Now, while we're waiting for that to dry, the next thing that we can begin working on is we can begin working on the stem. I'm going to switch brushes. I'm moving from my big round 16 to my round 6. And I'm going to take this round 6, and what I want to do is I want to begin working on this stem. So here I see there's a little like yellow ochre right down here that I'm going to just kind of bring in right here. And look, there we go. Just nice, bringing that in. And from here, then I want to bring in burnt sienna. I'm going to bring that burnt sienna in up the stem. And I've got a little too much red on that stem now, and I want to move back to my burnt sienna color. And I'm even going to pick up a little bit of that color with a napkin. I'm out of paper towels at the moment, so I'm just using toilet paper. Use what you've got. I'm picking up the color with this toilet paper. Now, this is very wet, but I definitely want to, I've got some pooling happening of water that I want to pick up right here. And then I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll go in and we'll do a little bit more. So I actually got pigment where I didn't want it. I'm going to see if I can pick some of that up. It is white right here. And you know, it's okay. There's sometimes that happens. You can get it where you don't want it to be, but I do want to just kind of move this over here a little, like so. So I've just brought a little bit more color up in here. It is just very light, and we're going to let that be as it is, and we're going to let that dry. While this is still a little bit wet, I do want to drop in some more color. So I'm going to take my red and I'm going to drop in some color over here and some color over here as well. And it's still wet, and I'm dropping it in. It's wet enough that I can really kind of move it around. I might bring in a little bit more water in some places, but it's still pretty wet. And I want to use my bigger brush here. So I'm going to pick up my round 16, and I want to bring this water in, this darker color that I have happening. And I should have taped this particular piece down knowing that I was going to have so much water on the particular piece. I'm darkening it in some of these places over here. Okay, so now that we have that happening there, I'm going to rinse that brush off, and I'm going to come back to my crimson, and I have my crimson here, and I'm going to bring a little of that back here. And just bringing it down. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see, we're starting to bring in a little bit of detail in this that is going to somewhat give a little bit more definition. Now, over here, there is a little bit, a touch of like yellow, maybe like a yellow ochre. And I'm just dropping that in right here. As you can see, I am bringing that in. I'm going to bring a little bit of the yellow in here, and I am nicely bringing that together right there. There we go. So we've got this nice little yellow, it looks like, that's happening there. We've got the same yellow kind of happening right in here. So I want to make sure there's quite a bit of water, and I want to be careful that I'm getting the pigment in and that I'm not really bringing more water in, because we can see what that does. We've got some yellow happening here and right in here, and I'm bringing this in while it's still wet. So not completely dry, still wet, pretty darn wet actually. And I'm going to take this yellow, the same yellow that's happening, and I'm bringing it over here. So I've got that coming up here, and it's just this nice yellow. And my red is pretty red, so I need to pick up a little bit of that color. It pulled in a little too much red. There we go, I picked that up. And let's add some of the yellow back here. Now, again, while this is still wet, I'm gonna go back to my round 16, and in my reference photo, what you can see down here is you've got some purple happening, right? You've got like that deep reddish purple. So it's kind of like crimson with a little bit of your violet. So I'm mixing up that color. I've got my crimson, and I want to bring a little bit of my violet over here into the crimson. So I'm picking up violet and mixing it with crimson to create the type of purple that I want. So there's this shadow under here that's happening. So I want to bring that down there. And then there is purple in here, just strong purple that is happening in this particular area, and I'm going to let that kind of go there. It's also here. So this particular area, I have it happening here as well. And just bringing this all in and slowly bringing it in here. And we've got it kind of down here as well. It's actually a stronger purple in here that I want to make sure I am capturing. All right, so now I'm going to let that dry before I bring more red in. Now, because that purple that is touching the leaf is still wet, I need that to dry before I can bring in the green. But while I'm waiting for that to dry, I can work a little bit more on my stem, which I am excited about. So I'm going to go ahead and take my round 6, and I'm going to pick up some brown. I've got some Van Dyke brown over here that I want, and I want that Van Dyke brown over here. I'm going to bring that in right here and here. Et voila, there we go. That's a really good color that we have happening here. And I do want to drop in just a teeny tiny bit of green. Over here I've got a little bit of green that I just want to pull in a little bit right here. I'm super tempted to get started right here on the leaf, but again, I want to make sure I'm fully letting that dry. Okay, now this isn't completely dry. However, what I want to do is I want to start getting the table that the apple is sitting on. So I am going to bring in some more of the Van Dyke brown is what I would like for this particular piece. And I'm going to just be very careful not to hit the edges of the apple that I might still be wet. And I don't want that brown to bleed into the parts of the apple, again, that may be wet. I can always come back and touch that up a bit, but for the moment, I am just bringing this around. And I'm using my round 16. I love using the round 16 because there's just so much to this particular brush. It's got a nice fine tip, so if I've got a spot that I need to get really tight and close to an edge, I can easily use the tip, but it covers a lot of ground, a lot of the paper pretty quickly for me. In fact, I just did a really big watercolor, a watercolor that was closer to, it was, 30 inches by about 41 inches. And for context, this particular paper that I'm working with right now, this is 9 by 12 maybe. So it's a much smaller distance, and I ended up using a lot of I used my round 16 quite a bit to help me cover that distance. I'm probably, if I'm going to do a whole bunch more of those larger pieces, I am going to most likely need to I am most likely going to need to get bigger brushes, but the round 16 will do the job for a lot of this. Okay, I think it's dry enough for me to start in here. What I want to do is, there is an edge over here that's a little bit yellow. I'm mixing my yellow and my yellow ochre, and just gonna do a little bit of an edge right here. Gonna keep that highlight sharp, and I see that a little bit coming into these. I will do the green over most of this, but I want the yellow to kind of bleed through a bit. So I'm bringing that in as I would like, and there we go. Okay, so again, that needs to dry, but while that's drying, I think it's time for me to start bringing more red. So I'm going back to my crimson, and I do want to bring in the red, strong red crimson over here. I've kind of decided that I don't want to do those raindrops. If you want to do the raindrops, go for it. I've kind of decided I'm just not in the mood for the raindrops, the water on the apple. I do want this to dry a little bit more so I can bring these strong reds in, and I won't be able to do that while it's wet. But as you can see, I am getting this nice and in. And see back here, I'm just going to bring that line, that pink red back there, and we've got the highlight happening. I've almost lost entirely my highlight over here, and that's a bit of a bummer. So let me see if I can pull up. There we go. It's still wet enough that right here I am able to pull up some of that color so that I can keep the highlight right there. So I feel really good about that, and I want to bring this red in right here, and can see that coming in and letting it be strong, and just keeping the crimson in this spot here. This is definitely getting to be the color that we want it to be. It's starting to really pop in the way that we would want this to pop. Even bringing in a strong crimson. And lovely, 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 lovely. And there we go. So this apple is really starting to take shape. It's so much fun. Now let's head back up to our leaf. I'm heading to the leaf over here, and I'm gonna pull up my permanent green is what I'm using, and I just want to get a little bit of water on my brush. I want to get a good amount of green on there, and I'm gonna avoid some of this and just slightly bring this guy in here. And it's fun to watch the leaf really begin to take shape. So this is just starting to really come together. Down here, we have this lovely shadow that comes this way, and it reflects some red onto the table as well. So let's pick that up. So let's take some of this big old round brush, and I'm going to grab some of that crimson, and I am going to bring that right in here. So we'll bring that crimson in here like so. And now I want to grab a darker amount of Van Dyke brown. So I want to really bring that down here. Strong shadow that's happening right here and here. And really coming in here. So this is all shadow that's happening. And I'm going to drop in some strong purple, blue. I think blue, I want it to just really stand out. It will make it purple in a bit. So we'll just bring that color in there. And it's nice to get it like this. And I think I want to just absolutely just like this a little bit more. So it gives it that nice little look, a little bit more like we have happening on the reference photo right here. So I'm going to take care of that just a bit more. And let's see. I'm going to grab some more of my Van Dyke brown and drop it in here. And then I'm going to grab a little bit more red. I, again, want that reflection to be really sweet happening here. I want you to be able to tell that it's the reflection of the apple happening. And I think you really can see that's what's happening here. So it's a super good reflection that we've got happening. Now, what we do have also is, as you can see, the purple that's coming in, that is nice because we do have that purple strong down here. And you almost can't tell where the shadow starts and that begins. So then what I want to do is I want to create a very dark blue black background, or green blue background. So I'm going to take some of the hooker green and I'm going to mix it with my blue and really get a good mix happening here. Really strong, I think some Payne's gray, and we're gonna just bring this in. Look how nice this looks, this little background. This color contrast is lovely. This paper, it is very wet. I'm gonna just bring this down a little bit. It is wet and it needs to dry pretty significantly more. However, what I will say is that there are some spots where we really I could stand to bring in some of this crimson, right? So we need more crimson here. There's a bit of a highlight still, up here, but we've got this highlight that I'm still kind of trying to preserve right here. Get a little here. Okay, so here's my apple, and it is probably not the best apple I've ever done, but that's, okay. It's kind of fun, let's talk about that for a second. So as you saw, we just did an apple. This is not the best apple I've ever done by a long shot. I don't even know if I like it or not. We'll have to see. I think this thing happens in watercolor sometimes where you might not like it, you might not love it, but you do it. You do it, and then you let it dry, and you come back to it, and you look at it, and this might look completely different to me in the morning. So I might like it tomorrow, I might not. I might even add some touch-ups tomorrow, but at the moment, I don't love it. But that's okay. I have been watercoloring for 6 years, and I know that when we make art, sometimes we're going to love what we make, and sometimes we're not going to love what we make. I don't like to rip it up. I like to see what's happening in my practice. There are often those that I like, and there's those that I don't like. And that's okay. So if you loved your apple, that's great. I'm so excited for you. If you didn't love your apple tonight, that's okay too. And I think it's important for you to see me paint something that I don't 100% love. But I had fun painting. It's still painting, and that's what we're doing it for. All right, I slept on it. And now I'm coming to the apple again with fresh eyes, which is exactly what you would do, or I would encourage you to do if you painted something that you didn't like. So let's dive into that. Okay, so we have this beautiful apple that I want to add some more detail. I've told you in the past, sometimes we don't like our watercolor because maybe we stop too soon. So I let this dry overnight and I've come back to it with fresh eyes. And what I want to do is I want to begin with this shadow area down here. So I'm going to begin by taking my round 6 and I want to get some Payne's Gray on my brush. And I'm picking up just a nice amount of Payne's Gray. And what I want to do is kind of pull this in here. We've got this little bump like this, and it bumps like that in. And it just kind of gives that nice appearance of the way the bottom of an apple is a little bit wobbly. And I'm pulling that darker color, just pulling that color down here. So it's giving us a little bit more depth in the shadow. And now I'm going to add a little bit of water here because that was pretty dark right there. And I want this to fade in a little bit better. And I'm going to grab a little bit more of that crimson and kind of bring the crimson in right here. There we go. So now I'm going to rinse off my brush and move back to my round 16. So I want to come in here with the crimson and I want to really bring that back into some spots. So I still don't think this is going to be my favorite piece ever, but I'm going to just make it a little bit closer to what I had imagined it to be. And again, I think it's important for you to see me work on pieces that I don't really love or think are great representations of my work, because that happens to all of us. It's a part of the process. It's a part of what happens when you embark on this journey of watercolor. You're not going to love everything. That's okay. You don't want to love everything. You want to have a variety because it means that you're producing a lot of work, which is really the point. Just painting, it's process over perfection is what I think is most important. And already it is looking better. It's still, again, not quite exactly what I would have hoped, but I like the outcome much better than I did when I woke up. Really, I just love to be painting. So, some are good, some are not as good. That is okay. Painting is really what this process is all about for me. Now, these spots, so they are very, very white on the paper, and they are very, very white on the actual reference photo. However, I'm going to just get a very light wash of my crimson red, and I'm going to kind of bring that over a bit in some of these spots. And yeah, I'm digging this outcome more than I originally did. Want to say one more thing before we close out about this. So here is how my apple ended up. And, if you're a beginner, this is great. But one of the things, I've been doing this, I said 6 years, it's really over 7 years I've been painting. And one of the things that I'm not immune to is every now and then having pieces that I don't love very much, which I said, but this is overworked. That's really what we've done here, or what I've done. And I could have avoided this. I did not have to do the wet on wet technique. So I think one of the things that contributed to overworking this piece was starting with the wet on wet. So it's a live and learn. It's just like you've probably heard this story, this metaphor before. There's this professor and he was teaching ceramics and
he divided the class into two groups. And one group, he said, at the end of the class, you're going to be graded on one perfect pot. And the other group, he said, all right, your goal is to make as many pots as you possibly can. They don't need to be perfect, but make as many pots as you can. You'll be graded by the number of pots you make at the end of the process. So what happens is that by and large, the students who made lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of lots more pots, their work ended up becoming so much more beautiful because they got better and better with each one. It's just like that with watercolor. And the more you make, the more you're going to have a bigger throwout pile. And that's okay. And again, I'm not throwing this out. It's not horrible. It's not awful. And I could probably do better. And that's okay. And I think that it is so important for us to remember that this is process over outcome. You want to embrace the process. You want to paint a lot. You're going to like some. You're going to love others. You're not going to like some at all. No matter where you fall on that spectrum with your painting, I hope you enjoy the process. That's what this is all about. Again, thank you so much for painting with me, and I will see you again next week.